first got into this, when I became a comedian, and I was like, I'm gonna do comedy about important issues. That's what I'm gonna talk about, shit that matters, man. That's what I'm gonna do. And talk about how people should be treated right, and how everyone should have like food and shelter, and like we can do better, and we have a better world. That's what I'm gonna do. And I started doing that, and then that was when people started fucking hating me. That was when people started fucking coming after me. Was they were like, you can't feed people and give them clothing and shelter, you shithead. You want people to not get cancer from pesticides? What a piece of garbage. You want everyone to have a house or a roof over their head? You sack of shit. Moving on to the next story. So speaking of a roof over your head, and this is the dystopia we're getting to, folks, in the United States. Most of you know, if you live in the U.S. like I do, most of you know we have seen tent cities popping up everywhere. I don't know what the number of homeless is. Until pre-COVID, it was 600,000 per night. Now, obviously, that fluctuates. Some people are homeless for a few nights, and then they find a place. But it was around 600,000, and I'm sure that was a little low. But nowadays, I don't know what it is, but it's got to be fucking double that, because every city, and I talk to, I'm not touring as much as I used to, but everybody I talk to that's in a major city, they're like, oh yeah, tents everywhere. People living in tents. You know who's doing well though is Patagonia. If you had money invested in Patagonia or other tent manufacturers, doing great. Honestly, folks, that's honestly why I'm here today. I wanted to talk to you all about a great investment opportunity. If you want to make some money, invest in tents, okay, in the United States, because those tent makers flying off the shelves. Just people loving tents, just loving them. And I assume it's because everyone's having a good time and they just want to go camping, right? Everything's been going so well, in the pandemic world and the economic recession and the proxy war we created where the sanctions are fucking boomeranging back into our goddamn faces. Everything's going so well. People just like camping right now. That must be why everyone's getting tents flying off the shelves. So if you get a chance, invest in tents in the United States, because that's the way to make money, because people are having a good time. This is in Miami. They're advancing a plan to move all their homeless onto an island. Like fucking Poverty Survivor. Like the level of dystopian, I don't know. Is there a good movie or book that references putting all the poor people on an island? Because this seems like it's straight out of, like Minority Report or some shit. But Miami's literally just wants to move all their homeless to an island to get them out of their faces. These people are these rich shitheads. It's like, I love that their idea was not, hey, here, let's give them all homes just in Miami. We don't need to move them onto an island, and hope they kill each other. So, but here's the other thing. The program calls for the construction of 50 to 100 tiny homes and 863 Barrier Island and Virginia Key. Now, speaking of key, here's the key point here. 50 to 100. How many homeless do you think they're moving to this island? I bet you it's more than fucking 50 to 100. So, what do you think that number of tiny homes? Let's assume it's the lower number because these people are so awful. What do you think that number of tiny homes is really meant to do? It's just meant to make liberals think this is an okay idea. That is the whole reason. Because Republicans are already on board. They're like, oh, take poor people, fucking, why ship them to an island? Why not just drop them out in the middle of the ocean? What the fuck do we care? Why not tie bricks to their legs and put them out in the ocean? Who cares? So that's the right wing. Then you have the liberals who want to pretend to care about something while actually standing for the same fucking garbage. So the liberals are like, well, you can't put them on an island without a house. They need to have a house. And so then these shitheads were like, all right, we'll give them tiny homes. And then they wrote in the margin, 50 tiny homes. 50. while they put probably 1,000 or 5,000 homeless people onto this island and just let them fight it out. And the biggest thing about this is, why do you think most of these people are homeless? Anyone who's ever worked with homeless people, met homeless people, interviewed people who interview homeless people. I mean, I had people on Redacted tonight that I have plenty of people who've been homeless, but I interviewed people who worked with homeless on a regular basis. A great organization is Invisible People, and I want to do something with them again soon. But they go and they talk to these homeless people. Anyway, why do you think most people are homeless? Well, like 50% have mental difficulties. There's mental illness of one form or another. Now, it could be PTSD from being our fucking fist of our fascist state. They're sent in as soldiers. They didn't know what the fuck they signed up for. Sent into Iraq, get PTSD, come back screwed mentally, and then they end up on the streets. So could be PTSD, could be other things, could be severe depression that leads them to not be able to function very well. Could be all kinds of mental illness. But anyway, at least 50% are mentally ill, and therefore that's how they ended up on the street. They couldn't put it together to have a life in a wage slave capitalist society that allowed them to keep a roof over their head. Then you have people who maybe aren't mentally ill, but they've been chewed up by the system. When they were young, they got arrested for fucking stealing candy out of a store. And then they got arrested again for stealing a jacket one time. And then they got arrested again for getting in a fight. And then their state was like, hey, that's 3 strikes, motherfucker. We're going to lock you up for the next 30 years of your life. So then they're in prison for 30 years. And then they get out and they have no life. They have no support system. They have no nothing. And so you have people like that. You have people who are absolutely addicts. Yes, there are addicts. But, okay, that should be a health problem, not a crime issue. Okay, if someone's an addict, fucking go. Let's help them. Let's arrest them. Secondly, there's people addicted to food. There's people addicted to sex. There's people addicted to fucking alcohol. We don't lock them all up. So why do we pick? There's people addicted to gambling. So why do we pick one type of addiction, hard drugs, and go, that's the one you get. We're locking you up for that one. Gambling, sex addiction, eating addiction. No, that's fine. We're letting you run loose, and we're not even really looking down on you that bad. But with hard drugs, we're putting you behind bars. So it should be a health issue, not a crime issue. So there's that. But then on top of that, if I were homeless, I'd fucking want to do all the drugs too. If I were living on you have any idea how hard a sidewalk is for your back, man? The back, I can't even imagine the back pain. I'm not even that old. And I'm just like, a sidewalk, sleeping on a side. Can you imagine how the back pain that must be involved? I've never done heroin in my life, and I would find every opioid I could if I were living on the streets. Anyway, these are just a few reasons that we should not fucking hate homeless people, treat them like shit, abuse them. I mean, and then, of course, you have like a small percentage where it's like, they just made terrible decisions in their lives. Okay. Is that, yeah. Oh, sorry. They made a terrible decision. They fucked up their life. They gambled on some investment and lost all their money, and then did something, when they found themselves without any money, they stole food, got arrested for that. Who knows? But no reason to fucking hate them, punish them, not let them get a house, a place to stay. So here's Miami fucking putting them on an island, like shipping them off to some Lord of the Flies chaos region. How about if you're going to give them tiny homes, not 50 tiny homes, but I mean a tiny home for every single one of them, which I've long supported that, although I actually support more than a tiny home because there's 17 million fucking empty living spaces across this country. 17 million empty living spaces. Last I looked it up. You don't hear your mainstream media talking about that, right? In the rare occasion they mention homelessness or something like that, they never go, oh, by the way, there is more empty living spaces in America than there are homeless by about 17. Each homeless person could have about 17 living spaces. Plus, there's more empty living spaces than people just threatened with eviction. Last I checked, during the pandemic, 15 million people were facing eviction during the pandemic, and there's 17 million empty living spaces across the country. So everybody could have a place, and yet here we are, shipping them to an island, giving 50 of them tiny homes, giving the rest tents so that your tent investment can do a little better. It's so fucked up. The location is home to a summer camp for kids, the article says. I'm sure that's going to go great. A sewage plant is not too far away. And then they try and make it sound better by going, and right across the water is one of the most expensive zip codes in the U.S. Yeah, it doesn't matter what's across the water. What matters is you put them on a sewage plant island. Commissioners are calling the idea a transition zone, quote unquote. Yeah, a transition zone to hopefully never never having to see them again. A transition zone to them hopefully dying is what you're trying to transition to. A transition zone of getting them out of our fucking face and putting them on an island somewhere so you don't have to deal with them. So they're not a living human representation of how poorly you're running your society. Because the whole point of a society is that everyone, let's say one of the main points of a society is that everyone can live and be happy and thrive. And when you have tent cities in your face, you have groups of people that are a living representation of how poorly these societies, and I'm talking cities across the United States, these societies are doing. And so they just want them out of their face. This is so dystopian. In my opinion, this is Commissioner Manolo Reyes. In my opinion, this is not an encampment that is going to be a concentration camp. Nobody's forcing anybody. Florida, first of all, I love the nobody's forcing anybody idea. These are clearly struggling, suffering people. So when they decide to do something, it is with the threat of you're dealing with a lot of horrible shit, and maybe this other one could be better. Maybe they're probably tricked into thinking this is going to be better. So the nobody's forcing anybody is bullshit. They don't know what they're walking into when they're shipped to an island. Nobody's forcing anybody. And furthermore, like I said, not most, but like the estimates are 50% of homeless people are mentally ill. So the idea that all of them are making a rational decision, no, a lot of them can't make a rational decision. So when you say to them, hey, we'll give you a little home on a tiny island, and then you ship them off to a sewage plant, you thought, oh yeah, great. They made a great decision. Florida has 27,000 people who are experiencing homelessness, and the program would house only about 100. A small dent in the overall problem the Sunshine State faces. The Sunshine State. The Sunshine State. Yeah, nice little euphemism for when you're sending homeless people to a fucking prison island. I mean, it's like an open air prison is what it is. It's an open air prison with a sewage plant. That's what they want to send them to.